We're going to take apart a bunch of stuff for the Super Bowl today. Andy Lang joining us. He's got a Super Bowl prop bet already locked and loaded. Ralph Michaels with two charts, both related to the Super Bowl. And of course, we've got Art DiCesare at the end of the show. I went 3-0 last night. Eddie swept as well. Andy Lang joining us. I'm Lawrence Prez and Teddy Covers is my co-host. Welcome to WagerTalk Today, the best daily sports betting show on the planet by far. Andy, that pizza on Twitter looked really good, brother. How did it taste?
It was fantastic. A friend of mine helped open a Detroit-style pizza place. They had their grand opening last night, and they crushed it. They did so good. Pizza was amazing. Yeah, I was so proud of them. It was so cool to see just a small local business kind of start from nothing. They did like pop-up shops for a couple years on Instagram here locally, built up a following, got the capital, opened up a bricks and mortar. So proud of them. Very, very cool.
Well, what's the name? Tell people who live in the area.
It's called Sam's Square Pie. It is in Indianapolis. It is at Rural and 10th Street, and it is some of the best pizza I've had. I love deep dish pizza, and they just knocked it out of the park. The crust is the key. The crust is the key. Fresh toppings. They keep it simple, and couldn't recommend it more.
Teddy?
Yes?
You now
Follow
ask
up on
Is it time for some actionable information, or should we talk about pizza?
Yeah. Let's go.
Super Bowl props. Let's start off the top. We haven't done much on the Super Bowl yet this week. I did a big game breakdown on Monday. That was about it. Let's start talking some props right here. And you got one about teams reaching 30 points in this ball game. Talk about that, Mr. Lang.
Yeah, so there's a play, and yeah, it's officially Super Bowl prop season. I know they just came out last night in full swing in Vegas. So the reason I know that is Kelly sent me 42 pages worth of props. I was like, "What do you think?" I was like, "Well, give me a few days to go through these." So let's take a look at this prop. Will either team make it to 30 plus points? And I think there's a lot of value on the no. And most of it comes down to the Kansas City Chiefs and their defense. I was high on this Chiefs defense to start the season, and they came through. They've been good all year. And when we look at this Chiefs team, there were only three games where one team got to 30 points. One of them involved the Chicago Bears with the Chiefs. That was a game where the Chiefs put up 41 points. One of them was against the Chargers. The Chiefs put up 31 points, and another was against the Raiders, where the Chiefs scored 31 points. So you're seeing a common theme that the opposing team of the Chiefs does not put up a lot of points. So this play is 17-3 in Chiefs games. There's a few other things I like about this. The second half defense for the Chiefs has been incredible in the playoffs. They've allowed 10 points to their teams. And the other interesting thing, these are not two teams that go for it a lot on fourth down. I talked about playing some overs in the Detroit Lions 49ers game because you had a Lions team that goes for it all the time on fourth down. They go for touchdowns, not field goals. These are two teams that are in the bottom 12 of going for it on fourth down. I think these are teams that take field goals if they get in close. So I get a Chiefs team that has been fantastic in the second half with their defense. I get two teams that don't go for it a whole lot on fourth downs. I think that the Chiefs defense kind of is the big part of this play. So I like the prop. Neither team will get to 30 points.
So what's your biggest worry about this? I mean, how do you lose this prop? What's the thing that stands out? I mean, is there a game script that comes out? Is it turnovers? What's your biggest fear with one team reaching 30 in this ballgame?
A turnover deep inside someone's territory, a special teams maybe, return for a touchdown. The 49ers have been involved in some big scoring games. We've seen them put up big points. I went back and looked. They're not putting up, huge point totals against great defenses. That big point total against Detroit, that was a Detroit Lions defense that had given up a lot of points, especially in the passing game. So I would say turnovers are a big concern. And maybe if one team gets out ahead early, So maybe if you remember that Cowboys, the playoff loss where they just got behind, by 1,000,000 points to the Packers, and you ended up with a lot of hurry up and a lot of, trying to catch up and points chase. So I would hope for a close game where field position becomes important and you get teams that instead of going for it on fourth down, maybe they punt, maybe they kick the field goal. So I think how I get beat would be an untimely turnover that flips field position, or I get a game script that gets out of hand and it's like 21-3 and you get a team trying to play hurry up and it ends up being a high scoring game. Those would be my worries.
Andy, if both teams stay under 30, there's very few scores that keep it under the total, current total. I mean, 28-21, 24-23. Do you like the under in this game overall?
Yeah, if I like both teams to score under 30, yeah, I do like it to go under. And again, it revolves around this Chiefs team. I mean, 17-10 against Baltimore, even 27-24 against Buffalo, two teams that can put up points. That prop hit on neither team to get to 30 points. Of course, Miami, you had Miami going on the road in cold weather, but they've just been really, really consistent about this. And I like the fact that San Francisco can run the ball. I think they'll run on this Chiefs, and I think they're going to have some success there that keeps the clock running a little bit. So, yeah, I do like the under. I think points might be hard to come by in this game.
UFC fight night, Saturday night. We had Kyle Anthony on yesterday. He gave out a couple of a couple of fight bets. If you guys didn't watch that show, it's up at WagerTalk TV. Gilbert Urbina versus Charles Radke, minus 198 for Charles Radke. How are we betting this fight?
Well, I have to talk about this fight because I have a really crazy thing to say at the very end of this. This is why I had to talk about this fight. So first you've got Charles Radke, who fought on the regional scene, wasn't great, but he put on really exciting fights, like a lot of first-round knockouts. He was one of those guys that came in and, was kind of kill or be killed. But he's in his 30s making his UFC debut, which is kind of a red flag. In his last fight, he's 30s, and he was fighting one of the worst fighters that the UFC has ever seen. He goes by the name of Blood Diamond. He's like best friends with Israel Adesanya. That's why he gets fights in the UFC. But he's terrible. So Charles Radke was this big favorite. He should have just run through Blood Diamond. He did not. Instead, he got his eye all busted up. He won a split decision, but it was just a terrible, terrible fight. And so he's fighting Gilbert Urbina. Now, Urbina is big for this division. He's going to have 4 or 5 inches on him. He's going to weigh probably 15 to 20 pounds more than Charles Radke on fight night. And Urbina comes from The Ultimate Fighter. He lost to a couple of UFC fighters on The Ultimate Fighter that have aged pretty good because the guys he lost to are having success in UFC. He takes some time off, comes back, beats Orion Koski, who's terrible, but he looked great in it. And Charles Radke, at the end of his last fight, gave one of the most iconic post-fight interviews ever. He used a word that should never be uttered, and it was used on ESPN. You can find it on social media. Here's why I had to talk about this fight, and Urbina is going to win just because he's way better. He's way bigger. He can win in the clinch. He can win on the ground. He can win striking. Kelly Stewart texted me the other night and said, what do you think about Gilbert Urbina and Charles Radke? And I said, I think Urbina is going to win. Charles Radke's terrible. He's not very good. And she was like, I'm getting my nails done next to his girlfriend right now. We're talking about the fight. I was like, well,
We're back. So you're sitting, Kelly is sitting next to Charles Radke's girlfriend.
yes, getting their nails done. They're talking about this fight. And I'm texting her, telling her that Charles Radke is going to lose this fight. It was a great little moment there. So I said, don't tell the girlfriend. I think Kelly, I think made the notion that Charlie Radke's girlfriend probably knows this isn't going to go well for him.
Okay. Well, they're inside information from the nail salon, Teddy.
Let me ask you this. This total juice to the under right now, 2.5 to the under. Is this a fight where you're expecting a knockout / submission, or is this one more likely to go the distance?
Well, Charles Radke, before he made his UFC debut, was an underfighter. This was a guy that came out and ended fights very quick. I don't know what happened at his UFC debut. He pushed his opponent against the fence the entire time. It was really boring. So if I didn't see that last fight, I would say this is an easy under. I hope Radke gets back to the come out at guns a-blazing, because I think that's kind of his only path to victory, is to make it messy and exciting right off the bat and hope to get a flash KO. If he tries to push up against the fence, the fighter is way too good and way better. I'm going to stay away from the total, because what I saw from Radke's last fight screams going over. If he goes back to his old style, it's going to be way under that 1.5. But the over-under is, I kind of got to stay away from that one.
Andy Lang joining us, everyone. Andy, what do you have to promote?
Well, I went 1-0 last night as well, so it feels like we're all on a nice little streak here. We've got a Friday and Saturday pack that is up with a couple plays. We've got a bare knuckle fighting play that is a part of that. We've got lacrosse. Yeah, bare knuckle fighting is tonight. We hit our one last week. Good profits to be made in bare knuckle fighting. Lacrosse season starts tomorrow. We hit 59% of those last year. That play is included. And when we have any soccer plays, that will be included as well as UFC. So should be a nice, good couple days in some of the sports that are off of everybody's radar. But those are the sports that we capitalize in the most. Our 1-0 play yesterday was a darts play over in the Premier League over in England. So those are the sports that we're running really well in right now.
Excellent stuff, Andy Lang, everybody. Dan, it looks like the volume is coming through YouTube, but not the image. Oh, there we go. It's all back and working, Teddy, except you're a little bit blurry or I'm a little bit high. One of those two things. What did we learn in the wonderful world of sports betting?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both there, Prez. I could be a little bit blurry and you're a little bit high.
It could be.
It's early on a Friday morning here, brother. Next week, I'm going to talk about Super Bowl and what bettors learn almost every day. At least I'm going to try to. I feel like I underdid what bettors learned, because there's a lot of topics to break down Super Bowl. Today, I want to talk about sharp sides, games where the pros and the Joes are lining up on different sides of the game. We're seeing that a little bit for this Super Bowl. I'll talk about that in a moment. But there haven't been that many significant splits over the last 10 years. Seattle-Denver is one that stands out to me. The Sharps won that one easy with the Seahawks blowout over Peyton Manning and company. But when we talk about what tend to be the sharp sides, teams with the better full season stats versus teams that got hot in the playoffs or got hot late. And the sharp sides tend to be, they like the statistical profiles. Full season stats trump current form for sharp bettors in general. And the early years in Vegas, I mean, the first time I saw a real significant dichotomy and started to pay attention, I remember the Bucs were the sharp side against the Raiders when they were still in Oakland. And that game was over by halftime, 48-21. I had a great time of that Super Bowl playing the sharp side. It hasn't always been that way. We've seen sharp sides lose. Steelers-Seahawks stands out to me. That was a sharp square divide Super Bowl. I remember how many sharp guys were telling me about how the Steelers' lousy season-long stats mattered and how number 6 seeds don't get to the Super Bowl, let alone win Super Bowls. And, of course, yes, the refs were in their favor, but the Steelers won and covered. And the Sharps lost that. Falcons, Patriots, another one more recently. Yes, Atlanta led 28-3, and it was the worst beat in any Super Bowl ever if you had Atlanta in that ball game. That being said, Falcons were the sharp side, Patriots were the square side. Patriots got the money in that ball game. 49ers are the sharp side on Sunday. All right, it's not crazy. It's not one of these every pro is on San Fran and every Joe is on KC. But it's clear the sharp money will be on San Francisco. The Chiefs are the public side. That does not mean that the sharp side is for sure going to win. Prez, back to you, my friend.
Teddy covers. Ralph Michaels has got a ton of charts up for us. This should be a great segment. Congrats on your 1-0 night last night, 2 nights in a row. I'll tell you, last night's 3-0 for me, brother, was intense. You know, when you're on a 2-9 run, you've sucked for 3 days. You
I
feel
know.
like, yeah, like this is a turning point night.
So my game last night, I'm telling you, wire to wire, 48 minutes. Okay, they covered every minute of that game. The last minute, I needed missed free throws. We had
Sounds like
technical
we were on the
fouls.
same
It was
play.
freaking a sweat and a half.
Sounds like I was on Memphis.
Memphis, yes.
Yeah. So we both had the same play. Yeah.
Yeah, 48 minutes. They covered the whole way, but the last minute was, this hair doesn't get much grayer, but yeah, that hair made me gray. And last night was when we needed one to come our way. It was a right side the whole way. You're supposed to cash that.
Yeah, my other two was easy though. I had the over in Coastal Carolina. Man, one of those teams got over 100 points, and then I had High Point, and that was an easy cover. So it was good to at least have two easy ones before we got into the stress of the ending of that Memphis game. Ralph Michaels, how are you, my friend? Welcome to Wager Talk Today. We love having you with us.
Appreciate it, guys. I can tell you this, as well as your two nights did, I had Wisconsin last night who blew a 17-point lead. And then I had a 5% on Boston as a double-digit favorite that loses outright. So as ugly as I can get. I can tell you this, if you looked at the Celtics box score, you want to know how a double-digit dog wins a game outright? You shoot 53% from three. You allow 33% from three. You get to the free throw line 26 times. And the home team gets to the free throw line 7 times. That is the answer on how you lose as a double-digit favorite.
The Lakers, with their backups, again, there were no LeBron, no AD. The Lakers were whistled for 8 fouls last night in 4 quarters, which was one of those stats that you're like, That being said, Ralph, let's get into it and talk a little NBA for Friday night. Golden State and Memphis. Right now, we're looking at the Wager Talk Live odds screen. I'm seeing the Warriors pretty much 8-point road favorites across the board. There are a couple 8.5s out there right now. Total sitting 224.5/225. Memphis got there last night. It was a sweat and a half, and it wasn't pretty. Can they do it again tonight against the Golden State Warriors?
Well, Teddy and Prez, I'm going to fade that Memphis Grizzly team with a very unique rest, no rest situation. We had a rest, no rest chart last week. And when in the NBA, an away favorite has at least a 2-0 rest differential, those teams have gone 66% all the way back to 2018. The Warriors are a team that's not going to look past Golden State. They lost there a few games ago. In that game against Memphis, 2 weeks ago, they had a season-high 19 turnovers. They went to the free throw line 10 times, and Memphis went to the line 40 times. There's only been 36 differentials of 30 free throws attempts in a game in over 10,000 NBA games. That's how rare that is. But I look at Memphis. They're 1-3 with no rest, and in the 2 games where they've had a 2-0 rest differential, they're 0-2 failing to cover by 15 points. Golden State, in a 2-0 rest positive situation, they have covered by over 11 points per game. I look at all that. I look at a Golden State team that, yes, is only 3-6 straight up their last 9 games. But again, they have revenge from a 9-point loss on January 15th. They have covered 5 of their last 7. And this Memphis team, I'll tell you what, I give them a lot of credit covering 5 of the last 6. As depleted as they are, they're playing hard. I think this is too hard to overcome. And I put no stock into this as far as my plays involved, but I found it very interesting, Teddy. If Dan could throw up that chart, I looked at NBA home dogs by days since 2017. Obviously, Memphis is a home dog on Friday. Take a look at those Friday record. Home dogs are 42% on Friday. The best day has been Wednesday and Monday, just over 50%. But this is one of those charts, Teddy, that I had to look at, shared with you, but I really don't have a reason why. Can you enlighten us?
Yes. Friday nights in the NBA. All right. We're talking about a bunch of guys that are in their 20s. And what do they want to do after the game? When I first moved to Vegas, I remember people talking about Friday nights, don't take the favorites. Be careful of NBA favorites on Friday nights. But I think it might even be the home teams on Friday nights as much as any other factor. If there's one night of the week where you're more likely to be distracted, I think that night's Friday night. And the numbers clearly show it, Ralph. How long does that chart go back for?
2017.
Yeah, so we're talking about a decent sample size here. I would be willing to bet that if you did that chart and went back the previous 10 years, you might find similar numbers for Friday night home dogs / home favorites. I think Friday night tends to be the roughest night for the home teams in the NBA. Not by wide margins. You know, we're talking about a difference of 8 or 10 percentage point from the best night to the worst night. But nonetheless, when you talk about a significant sample size, Friday night games for the home team tend to have more distractions and tend to produce weaker point spread results.
Ralph, let's turn our attention to the next game. Iowa -5. They're playing this Ohio State team that are 3-7 in conference play. Iowa's at home tonight, 38-28 for Big Ten teams at home this season. I like Iowa tonight a lot. I think we're getting value. They've haven't played well of late. They've lost 3 of their last 4. I was on them against Indiana, and they walked into a buzzsaw of a shooting team that night. I'm on Iowa tonight. Where are you?
Prez, I'm going to agree with you. I'm on Iowa as well, more for a fade of Ohio State than it is Iowa. Listen, Ohio State went very young last year. Chris Holtmann, their coach, has decided he really doesn't want to do the transfer portal. He wants to try to recruit freshmen. So what does he add? He had back-to-back top 10 classes. Last year, they struggled the entire season playing those young guys, but they won 2 of the last 3 regular season games, won 3 straight games in the Big Ten tourney, and lost to Purdue. So there was a lot of hope for this team. Another top 10 recruiting class. You look at they started 12-2, but in those first 14 games, they played 1 true road game. That was at Penn State. They were a 4.5-point favorite, and they lost that game. They are now 1-9 ATS versus conference foes. The only game they covered was playing Penn State in revenge at home. As a small favorite or a dog in the Big Ten, they are 0-7 ATS, failing to cover by 11 points per game. Now they have to go face Iowa. Iowa's the number 2 tempo team. They do not turn the ball over. They're number 5 in fewest turnovers. They shoot the free throws great. They're number 28 in the country. When they're a favorite of 20 or less, they did fail to cover a couple of those games as a big favorite early, but of 20 or less as a favorite, they're 5-2 straight up in ATS. Ohio State's conference offense, number 11, Conference D, number 12. When Ohio State is playing an opponent on the road with the lines between the 4s, so you're a very similar style team, at least a very similar style as far as talent is involved. Ohio State has failed to cover 8 straight on the road with the lines between the 4s. And how about this? I told you about Ohio State's poor defense. Iowa, in the last 11 games, 7-0 straight up in ATS when shooting 46%. 0-4 straight up in ATS when shooting under 46%. So that's a perfect 11-0 run in those unique situations. And Ohio State has allowed 46% or more shooting 5 of the last 6 games. The only team they've held under 46% was Michigan, who is a cellar dweller in the Big Ten. They're in last place. So holding the Wolverines to 46% doesn't mean you did anything well. It just means you played a very poor opponent. Iowa minus the points for me.
Hawkeyes as the favorites. -5 still available at most locations. Yeah, pretty much across the board. There were 5.5s out there last night. You can find 5s right now. Ralph, we've got 2 charts when it comes to Super Bowl. And the first one, look, I'll promote it for you. This chart's amazing. Download it from Ralph's page right now. You need to be able to spend some time with it. I download it every year. I look at it. I don't make a prop bet without looking at it. It is the best chart out there. Ralph, let's put it up there.
Well, I started this a couple years ago, Teddy, and have just kept adding years. It's just Super Bowl prop results. Because, you look at a lot of things, 3 unanswered scores. The lowest touchdown is 1.5 yards. How many times does this happen? It just reminds you of the situation. So again, this is on my homepage now. And let me just pull out a couple highlights from this. The team to score last has now won 14 straight years as a player prop. Teddy, when I started this 4 or 5 years ago, the team to score last wins the game was like minus 115, minus 120. Last year it was minus 155 because it's happened 14 straight years. How about the shortest touchdown? 1.5 yards. People think, oh my God, how many 1-yard touchdowns are there? Well, pass interference in the end zone means there's a lot of them. Teams that get down close with penalties means there are a lot of them. The shortest touchdown being under 1.5 yards has covered 4 straight years and has gone 7-1 the last 8 seasons. And the longest TD of 48.5 yards, the under has hit 4 of the last 5 and 9 of the last 12. So it breaks through all the situations. It gives you the MVPs. It tells you which the first play of the game was, a run or a pass. So again, just a little deep dive. So you think you know what the situations are. Find out what happens in the Super Bowl.
And just to make this perfectly clear, the price for all that information is $0.00. You download that free from Ralph Michaels' homepage at WagerTalk.com right now. If you're watching the show, do it this minute, literally. It's must-have information in order to bet these props for Super Bowl. I appreciate Ralph for taking the time to do it, and it's a chart that I personally recommend through the roof. You have a second chart for us, Ralph, when it comes to Super Bowl performances over the last 8 years. Tell me what the chart is and why this was worthy of charting.
This is not up on my webpage yet, Teddy and Prez. It will be later today after I do bet on it. The Super Bowl prop sheet is a 1-page sheet. I will have 5 or 6 pages after today's bet on it by 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday. So yes, you can download the Super Bowl prop, but make sure you come back later. This sheet is just telling you the leaders for the last 8 years. And it's important to note this. We know what type of superstars there are, but when it gets to the Super Bowl, the game is much different. You have 2 weeks to prepare. These defensive coordinators sometimes can shut down superstars. So in the last 8 years, how many 100-yard rushers have there been in the Super Bowl? Well, I'm going to tell you this. There's been one. It was Damon Williams for Kansas City back in the 2019 Super Bowl. But it shows you the rushing leaders, the passing stats, the receiving leaders. So it gives you an idea when you're looking at over or under props, what historically has happened over the stretch. And again, it's tough to compare them, but at least it allows you to be totally informed when you're making these prop bets.
Ralph Michaels, thanks for doing all this work for us. What do you have to promote?
Nothing. I just have 2 small plays for today. But as I said, go to my homepage, wt.buzz/RM. If you want the Super Bowl prop sheet, it's available now. That same download will grow to 5 or 6 pages by Friday night after I film today's Bet On It episode. So check it out this evening, WagerTalk.com. Again, the shortcut, wt.buzz/RM.
Wonderful stuff. Ralph Michaels, everyone. Teddy, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Today, the bundle tickets for the Grateful Dead go up for sale. I am racing to the computer. I'm going to bundle the 6th, 7th, and 8th of June together. So today it's with the Venetian hotel rooms and some VIP experience. I don't know what the price is going to be. Monday, the general public gets their turn. So we got a hard stop at 12:50 because my priority. Anyway, it's time for your big game breakdown.
Yeah, let's start talking Super Bowl props right here, right now. And I talked about it earlier on the show, what bettors learned. These lines are set based on full season stats. But the props you're going to win based on current form. I'm going to talk about Brock Purdy over rushing totals. We've already seen this one get bet up. 12.5 was the number that I saw before I came on air this morning as a prevailing number. Brock Purdy over 12.5 rushing yards. All right, Purdy, yeah, he's a pocket passer, but I went back and looked at the game logs from Iowa State, and that includes sacks. It's college stats. In his final season with the Cyclones, he had 26 or more rushing yards in 7 of the last 9 games, all right, including sacks. The big games, Kansas State, Texas, the bowl game, all of them he had 10-plus carries. He went over this number in both previous playoff games this season. That's despite a kneel down against Green Bay. Regular season didn't go over this number much. Did it a handful of times. Tampa, Pittsburgh, Cincy, Minnie, all pretty good playoff caliber teams. But there were lots of games in the regular season where Purdy didn't have positive rushing yards, didn't have a whole lot. The season-long stats. In the playoffs, he's over the total this year. Last year, he had his single highest rushing total of the year in the playoff opener, letting it all hang out. KC defensively against rushing quarterbacks. Yeah, they held Lamar Jackson under last week, but Jackson had plenty of rushing yards. So did Josh Allen. Tua got to 25 yards against them. I think Brock Purdy's going to take off a couple of times in this ballgame. Over 12.5 rushing yards makes a ton of sense for this bettor. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Lawrence.
Teddy, last year at the Super Bowl, I went 10-0 for my clients. I picked the side, the total, and I won 8 prop bets. That prop bet right there will be one of my client releases. I absolutely love that play. Great take. I do want to let everyone know I won't be around next week. But I will be doing the penalty box segment every single day, so make sure to check that out. I do have a 5% play up in NFL. I put it up this morning. I will be putting it up for sale later this afternoon. And I went 10-0 last year at the Super Bowl. Dude, I was so good at the Super Bowl that the Westgate won't take any of my Super Bowl bets. Ask Art. Art? See, he's muted. He's so afraid of my Super Bowl bets, we can't even hear the guy. And then he disappeared.
That's false.
But Art, I get it. I get it.
False.
And
False.
Let's make this really clear, Lawrence. That's not what the Westgate does. There are many books that are afraid to take a bet from winning bettors. All right? Many books will cut your limits. Many books will cut your limits to stupid amounts, which means you can't bet there and they only want square money. The Westgate Superbook is not that type of sports book. That's why we love having Art on the show. That's why we love to promote them, because they're good. Back to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I set you up very well there, Teddy. Guys, if you like the show, take a second out of your day, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, show us some love. Art DiCesare, welcome, my friend. Love having you on. Let's start right off the bat with how the hell did you do in the championship week in NFL, and then Teddy can take over and I can just sneeze on mute for the next 10 minutes.
Championship week was not bad. You know, the Niner game, which I had talked about on the week show, was going to be our biggest decision, ended up being good for us that the Niners did what they did, come back, they win, but don't cover. That ended up being really nice. So, yeah, it was good for us. It was a good result. Playoffs have been pretty good. Outside of maybe divisional weekend wasn't great. But, you know, Super Wildcard weekend and Championship weekend, not bad.
So Thursday night, last night, the Westgate has the prop unveiling party. How was it?
A lot of props, over 500 props. I mean, it's listen, I get that there are people now who kind of beat us to the punch a little bit. And, you know, there are people who get props out a little early. But I still think if you are a Vegas person or a person who likes to be in an old school book or, you know, loves the unveiling of that many props, you know, coming down to the Westgate on that Thursday is still a big thing. You know, the TV crews are still down there. They're still promoting it. It's still a thing. You start seeing people line up and do their thing for the props. So to me, it is still one of the last, you know, kind of Super Bowl magical things that happens leading up to the Super Bowl, especially now that it's here.
So I consider the Thursday night at the Westgate to be the single biggest confluence of what we might call sharp bettors or wise guy bettors that you'll ever see. Was that the way it was last night? Was it some of the best bettors in the world betting into your numbers last night?
It is, Teddy, and I think you hit it. It just always is. It kind of feels like a breeding and meeting ground for everyone. Everyone can kind of maybe, they're all over the country or they don't get together, and this is the 1 week or the one day where they will be able to get together and kind of hang for like a couple of hours. And it's a little different when maybe you're emailing and texting all year. You actually get a little face-to-face with people. So I think it's something that not only do we love, but I know the sharp and really respected bettors love as well.
Yeah, if you've never been to Las Vegas, and again, you're coming for the Super Bowl, you're not going to be there 10 days ahead of time. It's one of those deals where it's an off weekend. If you ever get the chance to go to the Westgate on that Thursday night where the props open, it's a spectacle. It really is something to be seen, something worth experiencing once in your lifetime, at least. For me, I've experienced it many times already in my lifetime. So let's talk about it, Art. Who were they betting last night? Talk about the props that got hit. We'll talk about side and total in a minute. But let's start with the props. The props are on center stage today. What got popped? Was it mispriced numbers? Was it opinions? Talk to me about some of the early action you saw with the sharpest bettors in the world slamming into your props last night.
Definitely, we look at it as when someone comes in and bets and they're the respected guys, we don't feel that they're off numbers. We just feel that those are their opinions and they're good enough to feel that maybe they have a slight edge on the number and they can get at it before anyone. And then you know how these props go. They move 50 cents, 70 cents, $1. I mean, they just really go. So, a couple of them got hit. Over sacks was a popular one. Teams to score 3 straight times was a popular one. Will there be a score in the final 2 minutes of the first half? That was a very popular one. And I want to let people know as well, we tried to do a couple of new things this year. Not that this is new, but obviously Super Bowl Squares is out there. We tried to put a scoregami out there. Super Bowl repeat. Will there be a score that has already happened in a previous Super Bowl? We threw that out there. Obviously, the octopus is a very popular one. That ends up being a popular one with more, general public type players. So just a couple of things to talk about. And obviously a 500 plus prop, extravaganza. And I heard Andy talk about Kelly sending her a 42-page packet. Well, that was our packet because our packet's 42 pages.
Yes.
There you go.
Of course. I don't know why you didn't use a book. There's no question that it was the Westgate Superbook packet. You have been the leaders. And let's give Jay Cornegate credit because this is something he's been doing since his days back at the Imperial Palace. When I first came to town, the IP was the place to go to props because that's where he worked. He took that with him to Stardust, and Stardust has been the leader in Las Vegas for prop wagers on the Super Bowl ever since. Anything else you want to talk about props? Or I'm going to shift to side and total right here.
No, I think a lot. Like, I know next week, and I'm sure, obviously next week every minute will be spent on the Super Bowl. And I think at that point, unless something real crazy happens, I think side and total will really be left alone a lot. But I think there will be a lot of time spent really on how the prop numbers have gotten shaped. Because we look at it as now we've been able to shape our prop numbers and we can now book to the action we need. And that's all we'll be doing over these next 10 days is be booking to the action that we received last night. Because obviously, outside of the people who live here, who are, general public players, the public hasn't come yet for the Super Bowl. And when they do, they obviously will attack the props.
Art DiCesare joining us, everyone. And Art, before Teddy jumps into the unimportant Super Bowl, Andy Lang's got a bet up for his clients tonight on bare knuckle boxing. Way more important than football. What type of action are you seeing at the Westgate? And any sleeper picks you have for us on the bare knuckle boxing fight that's coming up?
Zero opinions, zero action. We don't even book it, Prez.
Teddy, all you.
Of course. Yeah. Please Hit the subscribe button. More than 143,000 subscribers to WagerTalk TV now. Hit the like button if you like the show. We appreciate it very much. You can follow Art DiCesare on Twitter at ArtDice21. He's an excellent follow. And, of course, you can visit him at the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. Art, side and total. Let's start with side. It feels to me like this is a little bit of a sharp square divide game where the pros are looking at the San Fran side and the Joes are looking at the Kansas City side. Would you agree with that or not so much?
No, I would. And I think when the number opened 2.5, there were even a couple of offshores that might have had 3. But Chief money came in, and we weren't shocked by that, but it wasn't really sharp money that took the Chief number down. It was really just the market moving that way. The bets started accumulating on the Chiefs, and we just kind of moved with the market, which is going to happen a lot. Niners get to 1, and then we started to see our respected guys come in and lay the, high 5-figure bets on the Niners. The first 6-figure bet we took was on the Niners, and that's after it moved a little bit to 1.5 after the Sharps had taken it. But I'm with you. I think right now, if 10 days out, if you were to ask me, is it a sharp square divide? It does feel like that. I do feel like the Niners are the sharp side. I understand Kansas City is Kansas City because of their Mahomes. But, we've talked about this for years on this show. The Sharps really haven't lined up a lot on Kansas City. Now, I understand this is basically a pick'em game, 1-2 point game, but they didn't cover a lot of numbers. It just rarely happens with them. I know they're good ATS when they are a dog, but Sharps really haven't lined up a lot in these last couple of years on the Chiefs. And I think you hit it with the full season, kind of display that the Niners went on. I think the Sharps are really happy to stay with the Niners, and they've shown that early in this betting process.
So let me ask you this. I talked about it a little bit earlier in the show in my What Bettors Learn, and talk about how sometimes the sharp sides in the Super Bowl win. And I listed a handful of examples where the sharp sides lose, and there's lots of games where the sharp action is split. This doesn't look like it's going to be one of those. Do the Sharps have an edge in the Super Bowl, or do the Sharps lose in the Super Bowl every much they win when it comes to side and total?
Inside and total, the props, they definitely do. That's no question. Yeah. The props, they have a clear edge on props. That's why they come in and that's why those numbers move, and the numbers get shaped by the Sharps. But I don't think so personally. I really don't. I think, and in the end too, there's so much money that comes in on the Super Bowl that, even there are times when we get closer to the game where Sharps can come in and bet a number and it's not going to get moved. It just, we get to a point where the money and the pool in the money, or the money in the pool, is just like, hey, the numbers are where they are right now in their shape. So I don't think so.
Art, one of our listeners wants to know, what is your personal best bet for tonight?
Okay. Let's do a little college basketball. We're going to be in the Ivy League. We love the Ivy League, especially on Fridays. Play a lot of Ivy League basketball on Friday. The kids are studying all week. They get Friday to play. Columbia goes to Harvard. Harvard opened, 5.5, 6. That number has started to move up. It's at 7. I think I'd still lay the number with Harvard. Harvard at home up to 7. That's where it is right now. Lay the points with Harvard.
Teddy, anything else?
Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to Super Bowl? Or we can always talk some hoops for tonight as well. Last thoughts, Art. Who are you betting on? Who are you rooting for?
I don't know yet. I think I'm leaning San Francisco. It's really hard to go against Mahomes. He's just been incredible. He burned me last week. I was on Baltimore. And it's just one of those things where I'm banging my head against the wall after the game going, why do I keep betting against this guy? But I do think San Francisco is the more complete team and the better team. And it just feels like it's their time to get a Super Bowl with this group. So I think now I lean San Francisco, but when we talk next Friday, that could change.
Yeah. Art, anything quickly in NBA that jumps out at you? Sorry, Teddy.
Yeah, I was just going to ask the same question. Anything in NBA? Who do any action worth noting?
Absolutely. I'll give you a couple of totals in the NBA, and I'll give you a couple more college basketball games. Heat at Wizards. We opened that total 229.5. It's now come down to 228. Sharp money on the under. Raptors at Rockets, 228.5. now to 231. So over money has come in on that game, and a couple college basketball games. We got Quinnipiac at Manhattan. Over money's flown in there. 149 now to 151. And Niagara at St. Peter's. St. Peter's opened as a 5.5-point home favorite, but the money's come in on the dog, moved 2 points. Niagara money has come in now plus 3.5. So the Sharps took Niagara at plus 5.5.
There we go. Art DiCesare, what do you got to promote?
The Westgate, man, come down. I mean, obviously, we are going to have everything you need over these next 10 days. Obviously, all the props went out. Come get a packet. Come get 10 packets. We'll have all the packets out there. We'll have everything you need as far as Super Bowl goes. And listen, it's a busy week and it's a busy couple of weeks, but, don't feel that you can't come ask for me. If you want to come ask for me, I'll be happy to pop out. Super Bowl Sunday, it's funny. Once the game starts on Sunday, there's really nothing that needs to happen. I mean, later on, all the stuff gets graded, but I'll be walking the front line on Sunday. I'll be out kind of helping out. It's kind of all hands on deck. So, I'll be out front and center on Sunday Super Bowl. I probably leave by halftime, but I will be there most of the morning and probably through the half. So come say hi. And, if you need any help, I'll come help.
Art DiCesare, thanks for joining us, man. We'll see you next Friday. Teddy, as we know, I'm not around next week. I will be doing the penalty box segment. I want to wish everyone a kick-ass week while I am away. You can DM me on Twitter. If you happen to be in Fernie, you can DM me. We could ski together. My brother, Theodore, let's do a quick daily presidential address. Okay, guys, it's time for your daily presidential address. These are both these games I gave out on the penalty box segment where I explain why I bet both. Real quick, I went 3-0 last night. I had a horrific Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I feel like I am now going to go on a run. The same thing happened last week. I had a really bad Monday and Tuesday, and then I rattled off 5 great days in a row. I think I'm in a great spot to bet on tonight. I have 2 college basketball and 1 NBA play up for my clients. As for your 2 free bets tonight, I like Iowa -5 against Ohio State, and I like Miami -8 against Washington. That's it for the show, my brother. See you in a week. Take us home.
That's going to wrap it for Wager Talk Today here on Friday. We'll do it again Monday, each and every weekday, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Tons of programming from Wager Talk TV today, including the NBA tip-off show and, of course, Bet on It coming out later this evening. Between now and Monday's Wager Talk Today, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers. Cheers.